This podcast may contain explicit language. Listen to them, children of the night, what music they make. Dracula is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I am Van Helsing.
Wow. You were doing so much better at your Renfield impression, and then you decide to go with Van Helsing. Okay, this is starting off great.
Yes.
We almost have one spit take off camera. All right, tonight for our 298th episode, we discuss the monster horror classic Dracula from 1931, celebrating its 95th anniversary, directed by Todd Browning, written by Garrett Fort, cinematography by Carl Freund, music, I guess after the fact, by Philip Glass. It was not done at the time because there was no musical score for this movie when it was made and originally released. Editing by Milton Carruth and Maurice Pivar, starring Bela Lugosi as Dracula, Helen Chandler as Mina Seward, David Manners as John Harker, Dwight Frye as Renfield, Edward Van Sloan as Van Helsing, Herbert Bunston as Dr. Seward, and Frances Dade as Lucy Weston. Based on two novels of the same name, Dracula was released on February 14th, 1931. Critical reception was generally positive at the time, and re-examinations of the film since have continued to praise the film, particularly for Browning's direction and Lugosi's lead performance. Owing to the costs of adding an original musical score to a film's soundtrack, no score had ever been composed specifically for the film. However, in 1998, composer Philip Glass was commissioned to compose a musical score for the film. Dracula kicked off the monster horror genre, especially for Universal Studios, which also released Frankenstein later the same year. Dracula has been remade, had many sequels, and had numerous spin-offs that have credited the original film as part of their influences. It has also been recognized by the American Film Institute on the following list: for AFI's 100 Years, 100 Thrills at number 85, AFI's 100 Years, 100 Heroes and Villains at number 33, Count Dracula as a villain. In 2005, AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movie Quotes, it was listed as the number 83 quote of all time, with Count Dracula, "Listen to them, children of the night, what music they make." And in 2000, Dracula was selected by the Library of Congress for preservation in the National Film Registry. Dracula currently holds a 96% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 71 score on Metacritic, and a 3.6 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So, we of course cannot do this ourselves, so we welcome back our returning celebrity guest, the host and creator of Shea Cinema, and a Cinema Legacy Poll contributor, making her 7th appearance on the show to date. The sassy lass from Las Vegas, please welcome back Sara Shea.
Thank you so much for having me back, Tom and Dana. I think we scheduled this almost a year ago, I feel like, and I had forgotten about it until recently, but I am very, very, very excited to be here for this film in particular, because guess what? We're not in the 1970s. This is a big deal.
Yeah, I was going to say, This might be the first non-1975 film for you in a while.
In a while, yes, because I've done several from 1975. That is true. And it was my first appearance so long ago where I was also not in the 70s for 12 Angry Men. So this is like in my wheelhouse, I feel like.
At the end of this, we will compare and contrast Dracula and Shampoo, but...
Perfect. So much in common.
Well, yes, both are sucking the life out of women.
Correct. Still one of my best experiences in my life is talking about Shampoo with y'all. So,
likewise. But for tonight, as we discussed already, we are celebrating Dracula from 1931, the 95th anniversary. And next week, we will be covering a film that will be 100 years old in the general. So we're discussing often this season, or at least early on, some very old films. This is our second one, I think, from 1931 already. We discussed City Lights a few weeks ago. We discussed Sabotage, which was 90 years old to begin the season. We have Modern Times next week, or I guess in 2 weeks, excuse me, for its 90th anniversary. So there's a lot here to discuss in this period of time. You obviously, on your show, Sarah, have been making your way through this kind of general period of time. Dracula was not nominated for the 1931 Oscars, but did you guys cover it?
We actually did, and it was our very first bonus episode. So we thought that this movie was significant enough that we had to deviate from the regular list of just Academy Award nominees. This movie is so important. You've already listed off all of the lists that it's on. It's been preserved. It started off the Universal horror monster craze. Dracula is so iconic as a character and a figure, specifically Lugosi's interpretation or portrayal, that he's essentially our stereotype about Dracula and vampires, because this role was so I always kind of cringe when I use this word, so iconic, but this is one of those times where it truly is iconic and we're not just saying it to sound awesome. So this movie did end up on my Cinema Legacy poll list at number 32. So it's a significant movie for me personally, but also I think in cinema history. Plus, it's very short. It's very easy to digest because it's not like 3 hours long or even 2 hours long. It's 70 minutes or something like that. So this was our very first bonus episode, which then we realized we were going to keep doing bonus episodes. And now season 6, which we've been doing for about 8 years now, has the most bonus episodes, but also we've taken some significant time off and we're trying to get back into providing those episodes online. Eventually I will get to that.
Has the one that I recorded for you come out yet?
No. Trust me, I will let you know.
So when I joked on the episode that it would be coming out about May or June, that was probably accurate?
Maybe. I mean, we recorded after New Year's, right?
Yeah.
So it's
about
already
a month
been
ago.
It's been about a month, yeah. So it'll be soon. This school year has been an unexpected stress for me and free time, and my child is doing all kinds of extracurricular activities. I think I told you.
How dare she?
I know, doing important things and having a life and a career, and I have to drive her everywhere, which I do not mind at all.
Children's ambition. Gal.
Yeah, Dana.
Well, see, here's where you're wrong. I didn't have a whole lot of ambition as a child.
No, I'd offer him to do things like, hey, I'll put you in basketball camp. Nah, I don't like practicing. I just like to play. You're never going to play unless you practice. Whatever.
That's a pretty standard kid thing to say.
I didn't like practice. I mean, we're not talking about games. We're talking about practice.
Thank you,
We're not talking about games. We're talking about practice.
Yes.
Anyway, now that I've worked Allen Iverson into the conversation. Dad, what's your history with Dracula as a whole, as the story, maybe even this movie? What are your impressions, or what has this meant to you over time?
All right. I had to go back in the recesses of my mind.
Did you have to dust off the shelves?
More or less. I saw this film when I was in 3rd grade and went to a sleepover at a classmate's birthday party. and they had Dracula, Frankenstein, and Bride of Frankenstein on. I'm like, after Dracula, and then I got through about Frankenstein, and then I got about 2 minutes into Bride of Frankenstein. I'm like, yeah, okay. I went and got an ice cream sandwich, sat in the back and ate that, and then went to sleep. It was supposed to be a slumber party. They were all up till like 3:30, 4 o'clock. I was sleeping. I didn't care. I remember waking up a couple of times and saying, be quiet, I'm trying to sleep. I didn't get invited to too many more slumber parties after that.
Shocking. Utterly shocking.
So
the adult Dana and the child Dana are one and the same.
Yeah.
Just shut up and let me go to sleep. Okay, Dad. Sure. My history with this is next to nil. I have not read any of the books or any of the other materials. I'd never seen a single film. I tangentially know because some of the characters are overlaid or like have been part of popular culture, such as we had the Renfield movie a couple of years ago, so I knew that he was a character in this. I had no idea what that character was, and I didn't watch that movie, but I knew about it. I knew Van Helsing was the bad guy because Hugh Jackman did a movie about vampire hunters like years ago, like 20 years ago. But I didn't know anything about Van Helsing. The majority of my knowledge, therefore, from Dracula, other than just like pop cultural references, is the puppet Dracula show at the end of Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And that's about it until I watched this movie. Now, I will say, I watched it on Friday with you, and then I watched it again yesterday because I thought there were pieces that I missed on Friday while I was a bit sleepy, trying to space out after the end of a week. And it improved the second time around. I would have been much harsher had I just relied on the first time around. But there are some pieces of here that the storyline or the script making, not complete. They gloss over a lot of stuff. They don't fill in a lot of detail. They just kind of like move very herky-jerky from A to B to C. And then they rely a lot on Van Helsing's exposition in this. Okay, that's fine. Lugosi, I can kind of see it and kind of how he's influenced the Count from Sesame Street and like Count Dracula and all of the other vampires that come after him are all based on this. But I don't know if this is something that I feel like I would celebrate in the same way. I recently, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, finally got around to watching the original Frankenstein. I think that's leaps and bounds better than this movie. Just me. So, with that, no matter how many remakes are done, and we just had a Nosferatu film last year, I will say I did watch 20 minutes of that and then just never went back to it. What about these original monster film classics are still so celebrated compared to some of the contemporaries? Obviously, people are going back to the original Frankenstein. We just had another Frankenstein movie this year that got nominated for Best Picture. We had a Nosferatu film last year that got nominated for several Academy Awards, but people still go back to the originals. What is it about them, other than them just being the originals, that makes them, I guess to borrow a word, iconic?
I think there's something to be said about them being like the first. So this is not the first time Dracula or a vampire was ever on film, right? So we all know the F.W. Murnau film Nosferatu. So Nosferatu, which came out last year, is actually a remake of that, right? And Nosferatu was not even supposed to exist still, right? Everything was supposed to be destroyed because of copyright infringement, even though they changed all the names of all of the characters from Bram Stoker's original novel, blah, 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 blah. So there's something to be said about it just going back to the source more or less. This one is the first one that's accessible because it has sound, right? But there are things that are different enough about this version not having a musical score. For example, I've never actually watched this with this updated score, okay, that was added. I have always only ever seen it with just ambient music. And so this one you can watch because they talk in it, but it is almost a silent film because it's not very dialogue heavy. This is not a movie that you can watch and play on your phone at the same time, right? The complaint that movies now, everything needs to be narrated. Whatever's happening on screen, a character is explaining what's happening on screen. This movie, they absolutely do not do that. And if you are not looking at the screen, you are missing out on things that are happening, on character development, on the plot moving forward. So why wouldn't you go back to this? The expectation is that you as an audience member were going to be watching, but you also were not being treated like an idiot, right? And because of the way filmmaking was, again, part of the problem with this film is the sound is not great. There's not music, but the print that still exists of the sound is not very good. They've done great preservation on the actual way that it looks visually. Sound is not good, but the idea behind Dracula, as well as Frankenstein, is the ideas that are part of the plot is what is scary, not necessarily what you are seeing on screen, right? So we don't have the sort of explicit stuff that we expect nowadays. This remake of Frankenstein I deeply enjoyed it. I know the novel very well. I love the original. This one is very explicit. It's really graphic in terms of some of the things that it shows. But the idea of Frankenstein, he's digging up dead bodies, sewing them back together to create life, is gross. It's really, really gross. Dracula is exactly the same way. This man coming and sucking people's blood, and Renfield as his little sidekick eating bugs because he's in this sort of limbo state where he cannot become a full vampire, right? These things are talked about and they're really horrifying if you truly think about it. And that often is more compelling. This is why you, Tom, can watch these movies. Unlike, I would not ask you to watch Nosferatu, the new one, or did you like Frankenstein? You liked Frankenstein, right?
I loved the Del Toro's Frankenstein.
Yeah. And I think but we can understand taking that story, you're familiar with the story, and you can kind of deal with some of the grosser elements because you kind of already know what to expect, right?
Well, the grossness factor to me, I guess I never really registered, to be quite honest.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I know that it's a little bit more graphic with some of the like body nature, but it's not like gross out in the same way that like The Substance was a gross out kind of body.
Sure.
Perception. I mean,
absolutely.
Give me everything from Del Toro's Frankenstein over watching why am I drawing a blank on his name? Eat the Shrimp over and over and over again from The Substance.
Dennis Quaid.
Honestly, watching Dennis Quaid eat the shrimp was probably one of the most disgusting things until the end.
I mean, by the time you get to the end, I don't even think it's that gross. I'm just like, this is ridiculous. But you didn't watch Nosferatu, did you?
Like I said, I only got through like 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe max. But there hadn't really been anything that was like, other than just kind of this tone and the coloration and things that nothing explicit had really happened yet.
But it does later on, so I'm not going to ask you to watch it because I know what your limits are, right? Frankenstein, yes, I know that you could handle it. There are some parts of Nosferatu that I think would keep you up at night.
Yes, everyone knows by this point in time, whenever we discuss a horror film on this show, I am the gold-dipped wuss. I make no bones about that. I'm already lamenting the fact that I have to watch Weapons for the Oscars coming up.
Yeah, I
Sinners was fine for me until the vampire shit. Once like the one guy moves really, really fast and like is basically tearing a chunk out of a guy's neck, I'm like, no, fuck this shit. Nope, I'm done. So I turned it off and I haven't returned to it.
Yeah. I really liked Sinners, but I really liked Sinners because it's a vampire movie. I would have liked it if it was only vampires. I would have liked it if it had no vampires, but I was excited about that movie because it's vampires. And I love vampire lore, and it's because I've always been obsessed with this movie in particular, having read the novel too. Dad and I read the book together when I was, I don't know, Dana's talking about seeing this movie in the 3rd grade. That was probably how old I was when I saw it and read the novel with my dad and such. So all of those movies that we just talked about, those are all part of this, right? They don't exist without this movie. Now, something would have had to have been first. This one just happens to be the first one. But I think that it would be obvious for anybody watching it, whether they like it or not, right, is going to recognize the threads that it creates out of it, and that nobody's bothered by a remake or a redo of Dracula or a new take on a vampire film, because we recognize that it was never meant to be definitive, right? In the same way that people can get upset about other movies that get remade, et cetera, et cetera.
A large portion of this is all about the fact that when this came out, it shocked people.
Yeah.
Okay. And every time you have to go up a little bit as far as violence and gore and terror and what, because people become desensitized. And that's what's going on. And so, this is lame to us, but in 1931, this probably scared the crap out of a lot of people. But, and why it's nostalgic? Because you always look back at the old times nostalgically. Your first love, and then you forget about how much of a bitch she really was. Those types of things. And that's the same way. We have this nostalgia that goes. And it says a lot about the fact that whoever's first sets the tone and sets the parameters of what will take place. And everything follows within those guidelines thereafter. And so ultimately, when you trace back the lineage, it goes back to the original. And so that's why people look at it, because it was the first.
So since we're kind of dipping our toes slightly into this territory, Dad, do you have a plot summary ready for us?
Yes. Dracula is a classic horror film about the mysterious Count Dracula, Bela Lugosi, a vampire from Transylvania who travels to England in search of new victims. After a young man named Renfield, Dwight Frye, falls under Dracula's control, the Count sets his sights on Mina Seward, Helen Chandler, slowly draining her life while charming everyone around her. As Mina grows weaker, her fiancé, John Harker, David Manners, teams up with the wise and determined Professor Van Helsing, Edward von Sloan, who realizes Dracula's true nature. The film builds tension as Van Helsing uses knowledge and courage to confront the vampire and stop his reign of terror.
So what is this film about?
Well, other than the true monster story, it's really a critique of Victorian sexuality. That's what it was.
Okay. Well, then you guys would probably know better than I, as you're more read during this period of time. I simply said, every woman is susceptible to a blood-sucking man.
That's true.
Yeah, pretty much every man in some way is sucking the life out of a woman.
Well, I mean, if you think about the way that Lucy reacts to Dracula, right? They meet and she is instantly just like, oh, okay, yes, I want to know more. She does nothing to stop him. She is absolutely enticed. Part of that's probably his undue influence over her, but he is a formidable figure, and we are both fascinated and repelled by things outside of our accepted little box, whatever that is, social mores, etiquette, whatever it is. And so it's very explicitly, we can draw a parallel or a comparison to sexuality, sex, all of that type of stuff. Dracula's been called a bisexual nightmare because he doesn't care about your gender. He's going to feast on men and women alike. And the intimacy that the story requires, right, of getting close enough to your victim brings all of that to light.
Ever notice anything? I mean, it's the ultimate bad boy, but
Yes.
you think about it. Lugosi's character with the upturned collar and the black, and then think about the leather jacket with the upturn from the 50s, the bad boy, whether it be James Dean or
Fonzie?
Godfather.
Oh. Yeah.
Boy,
Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando. whether it be James Dean or Marlon Brando with the upturned collar, the ultimate bad boy.
I think that's an excellent point. And that's part of why Lugosi's character, I mean, he was buried in his costume. Okay. He only played actual Dracula twice, in this film and then in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. He had portrayed vampires in other movies, but he only portrayed Dracula twice. And so the costuming is just as important as every other component. And the popped collar, I mean, he's so prim and proper. That's why he's scary, right? So he is a bad boy, but he is so polite and refined, right? He is not scary in the sense that, like, he projects, right, his badness, okay, other than he makes us feel uncomfortable. So Dana, I think you are right. That's a mirroring, right, of his costuming that is significant.
Symbology,
yeah.
All righty. So Dad, any other themes about Victorian sexuality that you'd like to go towards?
No, I think I've said enough about it. So,
Are you sure?
Well, I mean, if you really want me to,
about how Dracula's creating more orifices.
The true oral.
How about that hairdryer from Shampoo Guys?
Yeah.
I mean, some people play with certain bodily fluids, but blood is not usually one of them.
It is pretty kinky.
It's up there.
Well,
didn't Angelina Jolie used to wear Billy Bob Thornton's blood
and
around
he
her
did
neck
the same
with hers?
He's denied that now.
But we all saw it. We all saw it.
I didn't see it.
All right. Did you know the original release featured an epilogue with Edward Van Sloan talking to the audience about what they have just seen, kind of like Psycho. This was removed for the 1936 re-release and is now assumed to be lost. The later Frankenstein similarly copied this model by featuring a prologue. Be interesting if anyone could find that. You never know. Did you know? After playing Renfield, Dwight Frye would find himself typecast. He found himself restricted to playing eccentric or jittery characters that had a manic edge to them or criminal lunatic types. I wonder why. Anyway, did you know? Among the living creatures seen in Dracula's castle in Transylvania are opossums, armadillos, and an insect known as the Jerusalem cricket. I won't say the Latin name here because I will just butcher it. This insect was common in Southern California, which may explain its cameo in the film. The inclusion of armadillos was due to the fact that armadillos had occasionally been seen digging in graveyards, which led to the mistaken belief that they would dig their way into coffins and eat the cadavers. I don't know if that helps explain your query while we were watching the film. Why are there armadillos in Hungary? But there you go. Did you know when Bela Lugosi died in 1956, he was buried wearing one of his many black silk capes, but not the one that he wore in Dracula. This one was put on auction by his son Bela Lugosi Jr. in 2011, the starting bid being set at $1.2 million. It failed to sell. Later in November 2019, the family donated it to the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, where it is being restored as of February 2020. It will be put on display along with an exclusive collection of prestigious and priceless Golden Age of Hollywood star props and artifacts. It ought to be noted that there was a persisting yet untrue rumor that being buried in one of his vampire capes was Lugosi's dying wish, when, in fact, it was decided by Bela Lugosi Jr. and his mother, Lugosi's ex-wife, Lillian Arch. The Lugosi family has long corroborated these facts to be accurate. Did you know? The innkeeper, played by Michael Visseroff, says to Renfield in front of the inn, "The driver, he is afraid. Walpurgis night." This is an anglicized form of the German Walpurgisnacht, which is the eve of St. Walpurgis, the evening of April 30th, also known as May Eve, the eve of May Day. This night is one of several during the year in which supernatural beings of various kinds roam at large, according to the traditional superstitions of various regions. So, if you are one of those that really loves Halloween, here's your opportunity. Now April 30th can also be Halloween 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
There you go. Did you know cinematographer Carl Freund achieved the effect of Dracula's hypnotic stare by aiming 2 pencil lights into actor Bela Lugosi's eyes? He is also, during the course of this film, never seen blinking, if you really look. But that looks like a good spot for our first break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 299th episode, we welcome back 5-time club member Sarah Duncan to discuss the silent comedy classic The General from 1926, celebrating its 100th anniversary, written and directed by Buster Keaton and Clyde Bruckman, with Al Boasberg and Charles Smith. Cinematography by Devereaux Jennings and Bert Haynes, music by William Perry, editing by Buster Keaton and Sherman Kell, starring Buster Keaton and Marion Mack. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Before we get too much further, let's check in with our guest. Sarah, what are you working on and where can people find you?
So, working on getting our own show back on track. Our next episode will be 42nd Street with our friend Clarissa Beckstead. And then we have an episode with you, Tom, coming up as well. Our last film review of the season on Little Women. So that will be coming out very, very soon. Not months from now, but very soon. Other than that, I've been guesting on other shows. Looking forward to stuff in the future, planning already to do actually The Bride on Movies and Us, so the remake of The Bride of Frankenstein. And I got to talk to them about Frankenstein, the remake as well. So everything that I do basically has to do with all of these original monster movies. So that's what I'm doing.
Unless you're talking about hair dryers.
Unless I'm talking about hair dryers. Yes.
Fair enough. Now, did you finish your foray through all of the Little Women remakes?
I have not yet watched the Greta Gerwig version, but I have watched several, which you had suggested that I do. So I watched the one from the 1990s with Winona Ryder and stuff. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Started to actually like Joe a little bit. Watched a version that was like a mini series that had Maya Hawke as Joe. Absolutely loved that version. And then there's the Greta Gerwig one, and there was another one that I think that I had found that I was going to watch as well. But I automatically loved all of the other versions more. And I think that I might not like Katharine Hepburn as much as I thought. I have liked her in a lot of other stuff. I did not like her in Little Women, and I think she may have actually potentially ruined the movie for me.
But down the river you shall go.
See, I like her in so much other stuff, but not this. And I felt bad, but you did a really good job of talking about the storyline as a whole and why I should give these other versions a chance. And you were absolutely right. And here's the thing. I think you just know the things that I like.
So turning to that, we had our annual Christmas exchange.
Yep.
Now, do you remember what I gave you?
I totally have it written down. Oh, one of them was Duel, which I have watched before, but I need to rewatch.
With recent EGOT recipient Steven Spielberg as its director.
Yes. And I seriously have it written down in a pile that's over there that I'm not going to rifle through because I'm not prepared. I'm so sorry.
The other option was Your Name. You could pick.
Oh, that's
one.
right. That's
you
right.
said you were going to do both, but I did not require that.
But I still need to do it.
Okay.
Yes.
And do you remember what you gave me?
It should have been Designed for Living by Ernst Lubitsch.
That was one of them, yes.
What was or The Barretts of Wimpole Street, right? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
So did you watch either of the movies I gave you?
No, because I'm fired.
And did you give Dana any Christmas movies?
I thought that I said for both of you to watch Barretts of Wimpole Street, but that's okay if I didn't actually make that apparent.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we can find that. I think we have access to it in one way or another. And he is a big fan of Wisconsin's own Frederick Marsh. So that'll be easy watching.
He's in both of those movies, by the way.
Now, to be fair, because I'm kind of like stringing you along, making this extra torturous and whatnot.
Yes.
I did not watch either of your movies.
Oh!
Until today.
Oh. Well.
I have 5 minutes left to go on Designed for Living.
Okay.
There is a lot of it I've enjoyed.
Yes.
Gary Cooper and Frederick Marsh are excellent in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little surprised you gave me an Ernst Lubitsch film because I turned it on and I'm like, I know nothing about this other than like a couple of the actors. And I remember you specifically saying how much you dislike Lubitsch.
Yes.
This movie is not strong in its writing. It is totally reliant on its acting performances and its characters.
Yes.
And in the two leads, it makes sense. I think the female character could be a lot stronger. But I guess the one thing that really stood out to me, you had mentioned at one point, and I think it was on your 1934 appearance for Revolm, where the pre-code sexuality and things they could get used to, this thing had a lot of that in spades. Like they were not holding back. They were talking like we do now.
Yes.
Which I'm like, this used to be a good Puritan country. What did we do? I mean, she's quite literally talking about, well, I hate to break it to you, but I slept with your best friend and didn't tell you about it. And then we were in the park and I didn't want to disappoint you either. So I'm just a tramp.
Yes. Yeah. It is the most, it's really, truly, I think, one of the most pre-code movies that ever pre-coded, other than maybe some Cecil B. DeMille stuff, because it really pushes all of the envelopes. Ernest Lubitsch, one of the problems that I didn't like about the early Lubitsch is it's too much sex comedy, but trying to be too smart about it. This was just a straight up, I mean, it's based on a play by Noel Coward, and Noel Coward's good at pushing the envelope and stuff like that. And this one just felt more real. to me, and I think that the performances are really very, very good. Miriam Hopkins started her career with Lubitsch as well. So yeah, I think the performances are really good. It's good. I love it. I love it in the same way that I love like The Shop Around the Corner, also Lubitsch, but these are different movies than what he was doing basically at the advent of film, or like the movement from silence to talkies and stuff like that.
Do you remember another Lubitsch film you saw, Tom?
Yes, To Be or Not to Be, which I didn't enjoy at all.
So did you enjoy it?
Yes, I think there are pieces to enjoy. I think it's not going to get like a full or like a terribly high grade. It's going to be probably more in the middle. And it's just because the story, it suffers a bit. Again, it's very reliant on its characters to save what is at best a below average script, which kind of skips around in parts and just kind of relies on you just picking up in scenes and then having all these exposition dumps. But again, if for no other reason, relying on the two charismatic leads, like you could see why both of them went on to decent careers.
Right. Well, and Frederick March and Gary Cooper were quite established stars at that point. Miriam Hopkins was maybe not quite as much, but it really is truly sexcapades, and the things that they say to each other and the situations that they find themselves in or pursue or whatever is completely antithetical to what we think was going on in movies at that time. So it's fun to be able to watch it and think, oh, you know, sex was invented in the 60s or with hair dryers and Warren Beatty and things like that. But no, it's actually been around, and they've been doing all of this kind of ridiculous, suggestive stuff for a really, really long time. And it was the first Lubitsch film that I actually liked on its own.
I thought sex was invented in Casablanca when they flash on the guard tower.
Also that.
But to be fair, I was planning on getting to the other film, The Barretts of Wimpole Street, before your next appearance. So
okay, good. Good.
You have about 2 months.
Okay, got it. And I will make sure that I watch Duel and your...
So since Dad also has that movie, Dad, we're both going to need to watch that before mid-April.
Barretts of Wimpole Street? Yeah. It's so good.
Now, I do want to take a small moment of an aside to just recognize, since we often have it as part of our background information for most of the films that we cover, the new National Film Registry released its list of honorees this year. So just a few of the highlights here. White Christmas got in, High Society, The Thing, The Big Chill, which we recorded an episode on like 3 years ago and never released it. The Karate Kid, Glory, which has been covered on this show, Philadelphia, Before Sunrise, Clueless, The Truman Show, Frida, The Hours, The Incredibles, which we've covered, Inception, which we covered last year, and The Grand Budapest Hotel, which we covered in season 2. So several of the films that we've covered that had not previously been in, I think this is a fairly good list. So congratulations to all of those films and all of the people that were directly responsible for them in being recognized in the National Film Registry. But with that, we left off at Best Performance. Dad, who do you have down?
Todd Browning.
Okay.
I think his directing and overall make of the film kept pacing and such. I'll have my comments as to why I had him over my secondary performer when we get to that.
I don't have him nominated for anything. I think this is an individual performances movie, and so I went with the cinematographer, Carl Freund. I think the best part about this movie is the way it looks.
I agree. I also had Carl Freund as best performance. I had Todd Browning as best secondary performance, actually.
Okay. Don't everyone talk at once.
Well, for secondary, I have Bela.
Okay.
Although the reason I couldn't go any higher than secondary is because Most of the time, all he does is stare into the camera.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I think Tom, you essentially said it. One of the best things about this movie is the way that it looks, right? And most of that is cinematography. Plenty of that too is also set design, production design, and costuming, those types of things. But the cinematography, it's not like Barry Lyndon level of beautiful where you can frame every shot, but you have such distinct images in high contrast. And that is only essentially achieved with Karl Freund's talent, especially him deciding to do the pinpoint lights on Bela Lugosi's eyes, which was such a popular component of the film that people loved. They really, really responded to it, that they then repeated this in so many other movies. In another movie that Bela Lugosi was in, White Zombie, the very first zombie movie, they do the exact same thing to his character, even though his character doesn't have those same sorts of powers. They tried to essentially recreate the same look for him as a completely different character. So it's those decisions are so fundamental in why this film is successful and effective.
Well, to kind of stay on Bela for a moment, he had played this character apparently on stage and was really trying hard to get this part for the film.
Yes.
To the point of, I think he basically worked for next to nothing to be in this part.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in a way, the rest of them in some ways kind of knew this is somewhat of a B movie, a silly movie. They don't take it too seriously. Lugosi is like taking it uber seriously the entire film. Yes. That is the one credit. I mean, to be fair, my history with Bela Lugosi is Glenn or Glenda, and now this. So, like, the difference between the two, and if you want to listen to my episode on Glenn or Glenda, you can find it. I am not particularly kind to Bela in that review. But
when you're high on heroin all the time, what can you expect?
What is it with Hungarians and being high on heroin?
I don't know.
Anyway, I don't know. I have to give him some credit because I find him to be charismatic in this film. So I put him forward for that because the intensity with which he plays it, I think, still pops off. And usually when they flash specifically onto his face and they do the facial close-ups, I think it is arresting in what you want the film to be. And it's part of the few parts where I think the movie excels outside of just simply the cinematography, although I think that's part of why that works. But my best secondary performer is another actor who I thought took this adequately seriously, although he plays it in such an over-the-top fashion that it's kind of comedic in the way that it's done, but it doesn't feel phoned in like a lot of the other characters in this movie. And I went with the character of Renfield and Dwight Frye, because I think, if anything, the only other notable character in this movie to me was Renfield because of the way that this is played and the eccentricities that's about all of these other things. Everybody else is like stock central casting. And I can't tell you, I do not want to hear this sound again for quite some time now, having watched this film twice in about 3 or 4 days. Mina. Good God, do you say anything else, John Harker?
Well, what's so funny is that this version is different. Okay, so this version is pretty close to the play, the Broadway film, which Bela Lugosi originated that role, very much wanted this thing. But the story that we are used to in terms of Dracula, we know who Renfield is, but he's also this side character who isn't really part of the story. Like, he's already been changed. And then Jonathan Harker is our little intrepid hero that we all fall in love with while he's mooning over Mina and all of that type of stuff. Jonathan Harker in this version is a waste of space.
He is so useless.
He is, and so is Dr. Seward. Complete waste of time.
They're only there for exposition.
Correct. And Van Helsing's interesting, sort of, but not in the way that he is in other iterations. So this movie is essentially fill in a woman, Mina or Lucy, right? Lucy as representative, the woman who's like, come and get me. And Mina as the, oh no, but she also gets taken, right? And then you have Dracula and you have Renfield. So it's basically women, Dracula, Renfield. That's it. Everybody else is kind of scenery, more or less. Well,
and I found this in the research. I didn't put it in as extra facts or whatnot, but it seemed like everybody else, including Todd Browning, really didn't want to do anything with this film, but the studio had contracted them out to do this. And so, really, again, Lugosi seemed to be one of the few people that actually took this role seriously, wanted to do a good job, thought that he had what it took to be this character. Everybody else was in it because they were either loaned out or they were part of a contract or a check or anything else. I just don't see the level of attention and care from bit character here, there, or otherwise. I mean, again, Van Helsing is only significant in a few stock moments within the script, but Harker is...
Anybody could have played that.
Yeah.
Those characters.
He literally could have been anybody. And I don't know what Dr. Seward was there to do except say, she's my daughter too. And so there's this somehow fight between the two useless characters over whether or not she can leave. I mean...
And that's not his role in the novel at all. It's really... The version that Francis Ford Coppola did in the 90s is pretty close to the novel in terms of the way things are set up and the characters. And Dr. Seward is also like on heroin and all of that type of stuff.
Oh.
So but Renfield is one of his patients, and the asylum is next to Carfax Abbey, which is where Dracula.
Show me the Carfax.
Yes, where Dracula is going to be. So all these locations are set up perfectly to assist the story. But these characters kind of suck in this movie. I'm very forgiving to them because I like the other components. But if you really were to start pulling it apart, which you're doing, justifiably, not so great. Not so
great.
What
was the motive for Dracula moving to England? Was it because he was looking for new victims and everybody there was on to him?
Dana, my dad asked the same question for our episode. And he was like, what's the deal? Why did he go? And my thought was, at the beginning of this film, Renfield is going off to find Dracula and everybody's like, don't go over there, right? Bad stuff is going to happen. So everybody knows, I guess, that Dracula does what he does. And it's not necessary. I mean, maybe he's run out of actual bodies, but my thought is people are doing all of the things to make themselves not available, right? All of the garlic and not going out at night. So more victims, I think.
I mean, it's hard to run out of potential victims. How many contractors work for Trump Towers?
I was going to say, maybe he was driven out of Austria-Hungary by their version of ICE. He could have been exiled.
Potentially. But he would have been, I mean, he's hundreds of years old, so he's been there longer than everybody else, right?
Okay. But if you get
knows?
Somebody that pasty white, maybe they have like an anti-brown regulation. The people that are so white, they have to leave.
Maybe
they look Greenlandish.
What were we talking about? Most charismatic? Is that what we're discussing?
Yes.
I think I'm the only one that has nominated anyone. So
it is. I also had Dwight Frye as most charismatic.
I went with Helen Chandler just because I thought she was nice looking and she occasionally kind of looked like she could kind of act.
Wow. Low bar.
Yeah, I know.
All right, let's move to best scene then. I have 5 nominees here. I have Renfield's first night. I have biting Mina. I guess it should be biting Lucy. Yeah. I don't.
Yeah. We don't see him biting Mina, I don't think.
Yeah. Mirror reflection, on the terrace, and final confrontation. Now, what did I miss?
On the terrace, can you clarify that a teeny bit more?
It's that scene where she seems like she's fine and she's out there with John, and then she tries to attack him, except then the crucifix is out and
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was going to say Renfield's first night, that's such a big, long succession of things. Like,
I'm more meaning when he gets to the castle up through the point where basically he becomes the slave.
Where the brides show up.
Yeah.
And Dracula says, stay away. Yeah. Yeah. The scene with the I don't drink wine all the way to there. Okay.
I don't drink
wine. For me, I think probably it's Renfield's first night, because it's the whole setup of meeting that character. I actually really love the opening sequence. Don't go there, right? And if Renfield had been like, okay, then there wouldn't be a movie, right? Roll credits. If all he had done is listen, and that's such a horror trope, right? That don't go do the thing, I'm gonna go do the thing. So I really, really like that scene, which I consider kind of part of this thing. But for me, I think it would have to be Renfield's first night. Without this first night, without setting it up that Dracula is creepy, that he doesn't drink wine, that Renfield hurts his finger, that Renfield is fundamentally a different person, right? Yeah, Dwight Frye was typecast, but he is a prim and proper gentleman when he shows up at the castle, and he is an absolute nutcase the next time that we see him. So for me, that's the best scene. It sets up everything else.
I would say it's one of the most interesting scenes, and one of the few that for me kind of worked, where I was like, okay, I can kind of get in on this, but then it takes such a step down from that point until we kind of get to the middle of the film. And for me, I ended up going with mirror reflection, just because it's kind of one of the few times that it's a show don't tell, and it's not exposition heavy, and we're actually trying to do something on screen. And frankly, Van Helsing has something to do other than just explaining stuff to everybody else. So if there's a revolving action that's outside of that first part of the film, because even the final confrontation, I put it on here because I couldn't think of much else, but the final confrontation feels kind of muted because he disappears into his cave and his coffin, and at that point he can't rise out of it, so they just put the stake through his heart. It's not like he's having like a physical altercation or a true match against Dracula in that moment. He's already killed Renfield. Right. So it just, there's no like great confrontation that you could say, oh, that was kind of a great way to end it. It was kind of a wet fart.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, depending on the circumstances, they can be rather memorable.
Messy, I don't know about memorable. I certainly want the cognitive dissonance to not remember all my shards.
I'm just letting that hang for a while.
Whatever you do in your own spare time, Dad, fine by me. I don't have to do your laundry. So what was your best scene?
Final confrontation. Because it's...
Okay.
Why?
Well, because I did nothing but just literally shit on it for 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's fine. That's the one I like the best. That's the one that I will also say is the most indelible, because it's the most that everybody always thinks about. I mean, I grew up as a kid with my babysitter over the summer watching Dark Shadows on television. and Barnabas the vampire. I mean, it's all tied together. So maybe that's why I had a connection to it, because it's been the most prevalent. The coffins and the hiding and the chase and the sunrise. And so fine. You think it's a wet fart? That's fine with me. I don't care what you think on that. It's the one that I thought was the best because, I don't know, I guess I had the most connection to it.
I will agree from an iconography and symbology thought process. Like, it has the most that is passed on as far as like the little things, the wooden stake through the heart, the coffins, the dirt, hiding in certain caves, that kind of thing. Like, it is the most indelible moment for me, but because it was so muted, I'm like, well, all right, fine. But ultimately, my favorite scene is Renfield's first night because it was the most invested I was through the duration of the film. The rest of it, I'm like trying to, okay, where is this story? What characters do I otherwise care about? I think Sarah's probably right. There are 4 characters to probably invest in this entire movie.
I don't know. I like the guard from the asylum.
Oh, stock central casting British accent guy.
Yes, of course.
Blimey.
What do you really think of him, Tom?
He's just so cliche.
So,
of course.
My favorite scene is actually going to be the arrival of the ship, the Vestra. And so we don't have any direct shots of the ship. There's they use stock footage from a silent movie, actually, for the stuff on the water. But you basically have this shot and they're talking. Renfield comes out of the bottom of the ship with his crazy eyes, right? Just absolutely looking like a complete nut job. And then you hear them talking about how nobody's alive on board before they find him. And the captain was tied to, do you call it, a steering wheel in a ship? My brain just completely went
helm
away. The helm. Yes.
Wheel.
So he's tied to the wheel, right? And we don't see that. We see a shadow of it. And that to me is so creepy and kind of wonderful with the setup of what has happened on this voyage. Everybody is dead. And then Renfield comes out of the bottom and it just looks like a psycho making all of these crazy noises. That's actually my favorite scene, other than when Renfield crawls on the floor towards the maid, which I think is almost a jump scare. It's so creepy how he does that.
Dad, did you have a favorite scene?
Yes, the mirror reflection. Because again, that's iconic that vampires can't see themselves, see their own reflection, or you can't see them reflecting in a mirror.
And that was why you really enjoyed it?
Yes. Well, not to mention the fact that Van Helsing is so nonchalant. He's looking in a mirror and there's no reflection of Dracula, and he just kind of goes, that answers a few questions. Okay. A little bit nonchalant, but okay.
Now, I already gave my most indelible, and for that matter, Dad did as well. So I guess it's to you, Sarah.
It's probably got to be the pen lights in the eyes. That zoom shot, that is, we identify that with this movie, with this character. And to me, that is the most indelible moment. You cannot talk about this movie or this character without referencing that shot.
Fair enough. So that looks like a good spot for our second break. We will be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley Rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our master greatest movies of all time list that has every graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, there's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com and find it as the top entry on the greatest movie of all time podcast show page. That has the grades we've done so far for all 267 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Dad, do we have anyone to remember this week?
Yes. James Mingo Lewis, 72, American percussionist and drummer. Santana Aldi Miola and the Tubes. Woody King Jr., 88, American theater director, founder of the New Federal Theater. Yvonne Lime, 90, American actress. I Was a Teenage Werewolf, The Rainmaker, Father Knows Best. Floyd Vivino, 74, American actor, Good Morning Vietnam, Crazy People. Mr. Wonderful, comedian and television host. Demond Wilson, 79, American actor, Sanford and Son, The New Odd Couple, Me and the Kid. And Catherine O'Hara, 71, Canadian-American actress, Schitt's Creek, Beetlejuice, Home Alone, Emmy winner, 1982 and 2019.
Now, my only relationship to anyone on this list is really through Catherine O'Hara. I didn't grow up on Home Alone and Beetlejuice in the way that many kids of my era probably did, especially those that are maybe even a couple of years older than me, that they enjoyed that kind of macabre sentimentality and really enjoyed some of those movies that were maybe a little bit ahead of my time. But it's hard to deny the cultural impact of Schitt's Creek and her renaissance, as well as what that show did for just general culture or pop culture about maybe 10 years ago, where she just kind of came back into vogue. And then she was appearing in like Capital One commercials, and she would pop up occasionally on The Studio, and just these random parts that we got to really celebrate her as an actress again after that role that obviously she pioneered and ended up winning another Emmy for. So with that, I think the outpouring this week has been quite profuse. I would assume both of you have some thoughts on Catherine O'Hara and would like to share as well.
I mean, for me, the first thing that I ever saw her in was Home Alone, which came out when I was a kid. So for a long time, I just thought of her as Kevin's mom. I didn't get into Schitt's Creek until within the last couple of years, when Andrew really said, like, you need to watch this. And then I made sure that I watched it and then loved it and cried through it. But honestly, the stuff that I like her in the most, I know people love her in Beetlejuice. That's fine, whatever. Not a movie that I love. It's fine. I really actually love her in the Christopher Guest movies. I think that's where she truly shines. You can see her range as an actress. I feel like a lot of Moira Rose as a character is her kind of pulling together all of these different characters that she did in Christopher Guest movies, because she played such a diverse number of characters, from very sweet and innocent to almost villainous to over the top to subdued. And I love basically anything that she has done in those collaborations. I think that's where she is cream of the crop. Moira Rose, great. Schitt's Creek, great. But that work for me is where I like her best.
I grew up watching her on Saturday afternoons in syndication on Second City Television out of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
She was on there with John Candy, Eugene Levy, Joe Flaherty, Andrea Martin, Dave Thomas, Rick Moranis, Harold Ramis, Martin Short. All were on that show. And it was a sketch comedy show. That's where I really got to know her and that whole group. And loved it. Was a big fan. Anything they were in thereafter. But I grew up also on Sanford and Son with Demond Wilson playing Lamont, Red Fox's son on the show. Really enjoyed watching that show as a kid. Thought it was funny. Loved Red Fox. Actually got one of Red Fox's comedy albums when I was a kid. Let's just say that it was nothing like the character he played on the television show. it was much more, let's just say his name may be red, but his comedy was very blue. And my dad heard it and said, "Oh, I'm not sure you should be listening to that." And I played it for him, and then he kind of just was laughing and then kind of ignored it.
That sounds like your dad, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, I have some ties. And quite frankly, one of my favorite songs in the 80s was She's a Beauty by The Tubes. James Lewis was the drummer, I believe, on that album. And I had that on vinyl. 1981 or 82, I think.
And so we remember these here fondly for their contributions to the arts, with a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. We also pray for the death of the integrity of our country and our government here now. Well, that went over well. Okay.
Everybody's in the audience is probably going, is he making a joke or...
Well, I did promise when we did put in our, let's say, break from character a couple of weeks ago that we were not going to hold back anymore. I mean, it's no secret that we're a, let's say, liberal-oriented podcast due to the views of its two primary hosts. I just really don't feel like hiding it under a bushel. I'm going to let my little light shine.
As you sing a Sunday school song.
Fair enough. Let my people go. Okay. Are you dry heaving?
In
What's going on over
in the
there?
category of Tom humoring himself.
Well, I'm often pleasuring myself, so. And there go all the views and the clicks. I'm sure that'll do well on YouTube reviews.
I had to self-mute.
The self-immolation was very apparent.
Oh.
Moving on. Best funniest lines. All right, who does their best Lugosi impression here?
Well.
Count Dracula. I never drink wine.
There are far worse things awaiting man than death.
For one who has not lived even a single lifetime, you're a wise man, Van Helsing.
The strength of a vampire is that people will not believe in him. Because also Van Helsing apparently comes from the same rough geography.
Yes. Listen to them, children of the night. What music they make.
Well, that was my last one.
Van Helsing, you will die in torment if you die with innocent blood on your soul. Renfield, God will not damn a poor lunatic's soul. He knows the powers of evil are too great for those with weak minds.
As I said, I'm out. I'm perfectly fine with leaving it on Dana on Renfield, but does
I think
anybody
that's
have
fine, because the rest of it is just Renfield saying crazy stuff like rats and give me all of the spiders and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, let's move to the Stanley rubric then. Legacy is up first. This is a measure of the legacy of the film approximately 5 years after it came out. So 1936 to today, what is the legacy of the film as shared between two equal yet separate groups, the audience and the industry? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to go first or second?
Second.
I think due to the nature of the film promulgating a larger... All right, let's put it on this front. First off, there's how many different sequels, remakes, spin-offs, and other things of this story and the rest of it that you could say is somewhat predicated on the basis of this film. We can start from that standpoint already and say that that's probably worthy of at least a 4. But when you also have a lot of people directly crediting this with being the birth of the horror genre for Hollywood, it's going to be really hard to argue it's not a full 5 on the industry. As far as the legacy, I think it has a lot of name brand recognition. Where I'm going to dock it a full point is does the name brand recognition have to do with all of the other caricatures that come from this? So, for example, we talked about the Count from Sesame Street, and we talked about Count Dracula, and all these other vampires that are just caricatures of this original thing. But how many people have seen the 1931 film? How many people really know the iconography and the symbology when it's not filtered through something else? So I'm going to say it's still high, but it's not a full 10. It's a 4 there. I have a 9.
Industry, 5. I agree with you. It's just too iconic. There's just too much there. For the public, people may not have seen the original film, but they know of the original film and they know the origins of all of the looks, the vampire bats, the wolves, the howling, the mirror, all of that comes out of this. And
or was that part of the subject material from the books?
Well, having never read the book, I don't know. But I think it's been part of culture since. So I'm a little higher. I'm at a 4.5 for the public, so I'm at 9.5 overall.
I'm going to have to give it a 10 because people do recognize this. They recognize this film and what it is far beyond almost any other film that you could mention, right? More than Academy Award winning performances, this film everybody knows. Little kids know what this is, right? And yes, I agree that it's because of part of its reach is because of spin-offs and remakes and all of that type of stuff. But again, it doesn't exist without this original one, right? None of those things exist without it. The components that are in this movie that make it a great movie really have nothing to do with the novel. The novel was hugely popular on its own, but this movie made this story in particular accessible to people kind of beyond reason. And so I think that docking points is at this point, at least in terms of legacy, I think is a little bit nitpicky. And so I have to give it a 10. Have to on legacy.
Well, in response to your criticism of me as far as nitpicky, that's the difference between doing nearly 300 episodes of this show and doing 7.
Sure.
Talking about a bitch slap.
Ooh. The gradations and the small, minute details and things that you have to do to separate out these over time.
I get it.
Well, small, minute things is all about his own self-pleasure anyway.
Sure. But I think it's worth stating, at least for legacy, this film, probably more than any of the ones that I've talked with you about, has the staying power that does not exist in every single other movie that I have been here to talk about. And we don't have to love the movie and think it's the best movie ever made, but in terms of its legacy on audiences, it continuing into the industry, it has to be a 10.
It's fine. I have no qualms with you trying to argue for your point of view. I only responded to the criticism of me. And we can move on.
Yes.
That is a 9.5 average between the three of us. Let's move to impact and significance. This is a measure of the impact and significance of the movie initially during its release. So the approximate 5 years after it came out, 1931 to 1936. What is the impact and significance shared among the same two groups, the industry and the audience? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to lead here?
Yes. Industry, I have a 5. I mean, this sudden just bang, bang, bang of Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, I can't remember what the second Dracula, I mean, just in succession. I mean, just bang, bang, bang. These became extremely popular. It really established a genre and allowed producers to continue to be making these types of films in a very short order. For the public, it did well in the box office. I'm not exactly sure because there wasn't any big box office calculations or ways to determine that. But I think that it probably did as reasonably well. I can't give it a perfect 5 for that reason because I'm not sure. And I still think that there's going to be a certain group of the general public that's not going to have wanted to go and see a horror movie. So I'm going to give it a 4.5 because I think there would be some aversion among the masses, or an element of the masses that would not want to go see it. So I'm at a 9.5.
I guess my argument has more to do with the industry, and this is somewhat from a place of ignorance that I'll admit. But the horror genre and its takeoff from this point seemed limited somewhat to one studio, and specifically Universal making its monster movies. I mean, this is the closest you were going to get, I guess, outside the Thin Man of the era, to an actual franchise in the way that we conceptualize them now. But that being said, there was still a lot of space in between some of these films where Bela Lugosi did not come back to reprise the role very much, if at all. And nobody else really spun off into like better parts, better characters. Like the actors didn't get promoted for anything. There's no awards attention for this movie. It was bankable, but I don't think from an industry perspective, I'm going to give it any higher than a 4 there. What I will say is from what I know of the box office of this moment, it seemed like Frankenstein was the best performing film of that year, and Dracula wasn't that far behind. So I think these were commercial successes, which is why I'm going to end up at a 4.5 there for an 8.5.
So I'm giving it a 10 for this as well. Again, I know more about this era and the fact that in terms of the filmmaking that was going on immediate success, they filmed a Spanish language version of this at the same time, like they did it at night, because they knew that it was going to be successful. While you don't have breakout stars in this film the way that you do with, say, Frankenstein and Boris Karloff, things like that, even though Bela Lugosi doesn't portray Dracula, except for this movie and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, he still has all of these components from this portrayal that go into essentially every other role that he has in film for the rest of his career. It's such a defining role for him, and people knew that they could make money off of him. Pretty much every other film that he is in at this time pays homage to this specific role. They were guaranteed to make money. And yes, they started branching off and doing these other Universal monster stuff, but Universal wasn't the only studio making horror films at the time. They're just the ones that we remember. And the fact that like the Universal monsters stretch out over the decades. You don't even have Creature from the Black Lagoon until the 50s, right? So you don't have the Wolfman until the 40s, that type of stuff. There's a reason it started with Dracula and Frankenstein in close succession. And then it just becomes this sort of frenzy where they keep recreating it, even though it's maybe not necessarily just this specific franchise. It created a phenomenon essentially at that time.
You would have to consider also Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Mummy.
Yep.
All these were done in the 30s and early 40s.
Right. And other than Dr. Jekyll, I think being done maybe like the year before, right? Very popular, but Dracula was kind of the one that changed it all. So in terms of, yeah, sure.
Are we talking about the Tracy version?
No, the Frederick March version.
Okay. Because the only one I've ever seen is Spencer Tracy from the late 30s.
Frederick March actually won an Academy Award for his portrayal in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So in terms of the impact and significance, again, we're talking about that initial 5 years, right? So sure, there are going to be people who don't go see a horror movie. There are going to be people who don't go see any sort of movie. You can't base whether or not it has a significant impact or significance for an audience just because some people don't like horror movies, right? Every movie, there's no way you can guarantee 100% of people are going to see a movie, right? But in the immediate moment, this film, absolutely, it's a 10.
I'd rather watch it than Marty Supreme.
Rather watch this than, well, I might actually choose to watch Shampoo because it makes me laugh.
Oh, Dick Nixon. Okay. Anyway, so that's a 9.33 average between the three of us, partially because one of us was more right than the other two, but that's all right. Novelty. This is a measure of the originality of anything having to do with the film, as well as the execution on anything in the film. Well, anything and everything. So with that, I'm going to allow our 7-time guest to lead us off here.
Yeah, so I know that you probably think I'm going to give this a 10, but I'm not. And I think that this is one where I kind of waffle a little bit on its novelty. Yes, I just said it was like one of the first of the monster movies and horror movies, blah, 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 blah. But it's not the very first vampire movie or the very first Dracula movie. We already had that in Nosferatu, right? And Nosferatu, potentially in terms of its filmmaking and techniques, more novel, honestly, and more creative and original. So this one, while I've definitely lauded the cinematography, it's an adaptation of a play, which is an adaptation of a novel. So it was adapted. Therefore it can't be a 10. I would say at this point, I would probably give it about an 8.5 in terms of novelty.
Okay. I would give it a 4.5 on the originality, only for how many things are part of the symbology of our understanding of vampires. It's kind of like how Back to the Future, everything is measured in time travel by going back to that film. And so pretty much every other vampire thing comes back to the basic rules established somewhat in this movie. Wooden stakes, crucifixes, the garlic, the wolf's bane, a lot of other things that were popularized in this if people hadn't read or consumed the novel or the play or anything else. And because of its staying power, the multiple sequels, etc., I think that it does have some of that to establish at least some of the originality, this being the origin point for a lot of those things. Where I dock this significantly is in the execution. I don't think it's a particularly great directed film. The screenwriting leaves a lot to be desired. I think there are several different actors that are, like we said, useless to this overall story. I think you have a couple of very good performances at the center that help carry parts of this. I think you have some familiarity or the tropes that have become more familiar over time that help carry parts of this. I think the cinematography is exceptional, but overall, I think it's weighed down by the things that don't go well in this film more than it's aided up as a result. And I have a 2 for that, so a 6.5.
I have a 4.5 for originality. Again, it's iconic in so many regards, in so many ways, and I'm not going to repeat your comments, Tom, but execution, the screenplay, some of the acting and some of the methods and such employed by the actors is not the best. I disagree on the directing. I thought it was were directed better than you did, obviously. So I'm at a 3.5 for that. So that gives me an 8 overall.
So that is a 7.67 average between the three of us. Classicness. This is a category measuring how well something has aged or not over time. Somewhat can be thought of as a cringe factor. There are other ways of deciphering this category, but it lives in a high level of nuance, so we turn to our senior nuance correspondent, Dana.
Well, we start at 6, as we've said many times, because it's easier to go up or down than up, and so we're a little bit weighted. Anyway, the point being is, in this particular case, is I'm giving a straight 6. I'm leaving it right where it is. Yes, it's iconic. It started so much of this, and so that makes it more classical and such. But it's overacted. The screenplay is not that good. It doesn't hold up that well. It's not scary per se, in large part, because we become desensitized to horror to the most part. It wasn't anything revolutionary. I'm not even going to go to the whole point of, the male saviors of all the damsels in distress, because it's a period piece based upon a story. But yeah, so I'm going to go stay right where it is, 6.
Okay, I will mirror some of your same comments, but I'm going to subtract points for a lot of those. It's cheesy. We have criticized comedies for the jokes not being funny anymore. If something is not horrific and it is a horror genre film, it's got to get knocked down a little bit for it. The special effects in this are laughably bad. The storytelling is not good. The only thing I can give a point back up for is that it's got timeless or classic iconography and certain things that you can point to as being a reason to watch this. So ultimately, I end up at a 4. All right, come in with your 10.
Well, I think you both have made some significant arguments on why this would be further down on the classicness scale, right? Especially if we're starting at a 6 and going from there. There's a reason why I do not play this film, for example, in my myth and folklore class, because why wouldn't we cover vampires and Dracula and all of that type of stuff? But I don't use this film in the way that I use original Godzilla or King Kong or King Kong versus Godzilla or Frankenstein or things of that nature. I don't go to this film because there are problems with it holding up. Kids respond better, honestly, to Frankenstein. And Tom, you said the same thing. You like Frankenstein more. And even kids who are reading the novel Frankenstein respond to original Frankenstein more. So I do think there are some problems with it holding up. Beautiful to look at. But one of the things that's difficult about it is because it doesn't have a musical soundtrack. Now, that was a decision made, by Todd Browning as a director to not include it. But part of it was because this is still in the early days of talkies. They haven't quite mastered, soundtracks yet. So that's part of why it doesn't exist. The sound in this film hasn't held up. There is a constant hiss in every print of it that you watch, even though it looks great and they've restored negatives. They haven't been able to fix the sound. And yeah, it's cheesy and the acting is over the top. I can't go as low as either of you. I think taking it to a 7 is a significant reduction for me, knowing all of the things that I do about this film, but also acknowledging that as much as I am fond of this film, it doesn't hold up to the level that other films do. And I think some of these things that they're indefensible, right? I cannot defend the acting or lack of skill with different filmmaking components, right?
So that is a 5.67 average between the three of us. Let's move to rewatchability. Let's start with our guest.
Well, I watched this movie a lot, and it doesn't take up a lot of time to watch it, but it does require you to pay attention.
So you're not turning this on while grading?
No, I'm not, because I need to be able to pay attention, right? Same reason I don't watch certain things that have subtitles while I am grading and all of that type of stuff.
Shogun.
Shh. I'm still in the process of watching it. You know, I didn't.
The process of watching it. Is this like general plans of a design of a eventual plan for bureaucracy week or infrastructure week? Infrastructure week. There were concepts of a plan.
I'm on like episode 4, so hush your mouth.
And how long have you been on episode 4?
A couple of months, actually. I did progress a little bit. So no, I don't put this on while I am grading. Okay. I need stuff. That's why it was great to watch How I Met Your Mother while I was grading, because I could just have it on and going 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 and going.
Wait for it.
Something I just had a thought. My brain squirreled away to A Series of Unfortunate Events, which has Neil Patrick Harris in it. And in one of the episodes, because Keely loves that show, he literally does say, as Count Olaf, challenge accepted, which I had seen before and had no idea what the reference. I didn't know it was a reference, but now I know. Okay. So in terms of rewatchability, you can't quite put it on and catch. The first thing that happens is like you would have to be seeing it, but not necessarily listening to it. I would probably put it around a 7. I love this film. I will happily watch it, but it needs to be dedicated time to put it on. Like, so for example, I would put on Shampoo. That would be fun to have in the background, but I can't put on Dracula and have it in the background because I'm gonna have to stare at it too much.
Dad, would you like to go?
Sure. I saw this film 58 years ago, 54 years ago, excuse me. I could probably go another 54 years without watching it again. So I'm at a 2.
Oh, wow.
Dang.
Wow. Okay.
I have no interest in watching it again because it's iconic, yeah, but it's just not that great of a film overall for me. And so I don't need to watch it again. And I probably wouldn't necessarily recommend anybody else to either. You know enough about the story. You don't need to watch this. There are better versions of it.
Dana, with the hand in the warm water here.
It was like a wooden stake to my heart. Sorry, Dana.
Oh, sorry.
As I've said for probably about a year plus now at this point, that I have tried to go back to the original version of this category that tries to anticipate what the watchability and rewatchability of a general audience is in a more objective fashion, as opposed to my own subjective thoughts on this. With that said, and this is not original criticism. This is similar to what I've been saying about a lot of these films that we've been covering that are quite a bit older. Old, black and white, cheesy acting. The special effects are bad. It's a bit slow. All of these things would weigh against it. Now, last week, as maybe a little bit of a pushback on me, Adam seemed to indicate that I was describing more watchability than rewatchability, and I think that's a little bit fair. So from that standpoint, if you can get somebody introduced to the watchability, I think the runtime helps a little bit. I think there are a couple of decent performances that would you be able to convince somebody to watch it again, especially if they enjoy this kind of thing to begin with, at least as like a starting point? I think it's a little bit higher, but I don't think it's like terribly, terribly high. So with that, I'm going to go with a 4.5. And so that is going to average out to a 4.5 between the three of us. As for audience score on this one, we had a 91% for Google users and an 82% for Rotten Tomato users, giving us an 8.65. So to repeat the categories, we had a 9.5 for Legacy, a 9.33 for Impact and Significance, a 7.67 for Novelty, a 5.67 for Classicness, a 4.5 for Rewatchability, and an 8.65 for audience score, giving us a final total of... I hit the wrong drum one. I'm leaving that in. 45.32, and currently placing it on our list at number 154 between Magnolia and Little Miss Sunshine, which we only covered 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
You dragged it up into the kind of middle zone of the list.
I'm proud of that one. Where did we rank?
Originally my projections would have had it in the mid 200s.
Okay. Where did we put Shampoo? I don't remember.
Shampoo. It's got to be in the low 200s.
There are currently 268 films on the list. Any guess as to where Shampoo is?
260.
Too bad it can't be at 269. 250.
It is currently 266.
Wow. What are the only movies that are below it?
You want to take a guess?
The Room.
Well, that's a guarantee. It's going to be hard to get past The Room without being truly terrible.
Okay. I wouldn't... Cimarron, eventually. I don't know. What?
Cimarron will make a run for its money.
The greatest, greatest show on earth.
Ding.
Wow.
Victory, which has been a punching bag on this show, is above Shampoo.
Really? Ugh.
I mean, I would definitely watch Shampoo over many films.
By the way, all four of those films are the only ones we've covered to not have a score above 32.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Therefore, ching. It's perfect. Yes, you should definitely leave that in.
We all make mistakes.
That was perfect, though.
But as usual, if you have anything to say about our commentary, if you have good, bad, or negative reviews, please find us at greatestalltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on our socials at Gmode Podcast, wherever you have social media, or you can find us at our email, greatestalltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Our website is RonnieDuncanStudios.com/Gmode Podcast. Let's move to remaining questions, of which there are many because the story leaves a lot to be desired here. What's next for Mina and John other than him just like calling out to her? I swear that's got to be like something sexual between the two of them because it was annoying.
Oh, God.
Does the book say what comes afterward?
Not really. I mean, it's very... The novel is written... It's an epistolary novel, so it's a series of letters in the same way that Frankenstein is as well. So it's like Mina's journal and Jonathan's journal and Dr. Seward's journal, and everybody's really angsty and I love you so much, but I can't get to you and everything is terrible. And Jonathan writes a lot about all of the different food that he's eating. That's pretty much it.
Okay. So, any guesses as to what we think is next for them? I mean, I'm not sure why Mina is able to be released from the hold, more or less.
Well, they kill Dracula, so they're for I don't know, she's in that weird, she's not turned into a vampire, but she is.
Well, if only biting someone is what turns them into a vampire, I thought, even though we don't explicitly see it, that she was bitten. I mean, it does say that she had the 2 new orifices. So I don't know. Why is she not a vampire? It doesn't make much sense to me.
Deus ex machina. Just, you got to accept it and let it go. I mean, these are plot holes, right, that we don't necessarily get to fill in, which is why this movie doesn't have 10s across the board.
Maybe we just need to have a vampire expert on to interpret this stuff.
Yeah, let's do that.
Well, we could reach out to our former guest who was like very horror centric, the guy that was on for our Jaws revisit. And I think he would either have connections for us or would be willing to come in and talk to us about all of this stuff. What happens to the others that Dracula turned? I would assume they either had to be killed because we had to drive the stake through like 3 of them. But are anybody else released from the hold? Like, if Renfield had survived, would he have been released?
I mean, what do you think about Renfield getting thrown down the stairs? It's kind of sad. His little body just goes boop, boop, boop. Here's the thing. Other than the people in the immediate moment, I think we're supposed to assume that everybody else is dead. That there isn't anybody that he's turned that is still functioning, right?
I mean, I guess. I don't know.
So Van Helsing just puts himself out of a job.
Well, eventually everybody has to retire, including you.
Yeah, sure. About the time you put me in the coffin.
That's by your choice.
Sure. Anyway.
Okay, I've exhausted my questions.
There's too many plot holes, and I don't think you could ever truly get them answered. There's more components for this stuff in the novel, but this movie does not address all of the components in the novel. So,
and frankly, if we explored all of them, it turns into a 2-hour movie, and I don't think I need that.
No, you don't need that. Not this version, anyway.
Okay. So, if there are no more remaining questions, Sarah, thank you for being back with us again for your 7th appearance. You are currently scheduled to be back with us for The Public Enemy in April. We'll have to polish up our Cagney impressions until then. But please remind the people again what you're working on and where they can find you.
Yeah, so my show is Shea Cinema, which I do with my own father. We are watching and reviewing every film nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture. We are in the towards the end of our 6th season, which coincides with the 6th Academy Award. So we are at the end of 1933 right now, and we will continue forward. If we live long enough, we need to get bitten by Dracula so that we could become current and eventually do the 2026 awards. But we have like 90 other seasons to get through. So we need to start doing an episode a day, I guess, so that we could catch up.
I would just take an edited episode a week.
Just to get back to a weekly schedule. That would also be a great idea, Thomas. But you can find me on social media at Shea Cinema on Instagram, Threads. I have an account on X. I never go there. It's too overwhelming. I have an account on Letterboxd. I forget that it exists. I'm an old. I need to, get to editing things. Maybe things will come out before we all end up at Michigan together, right? That'll be a goal. Yeah, that's the goal.
Perfect. Now, I did want to follow up on last week where we mentioned that Dana now has a Letterboxd account. It's at Dana W. Duncan 63 if you want to follow him for any of his content. I will say Andrew was already poking fun at you yesterday because you apparently put a review for Butterfly, the short film in a completely different movie by the same name.
Oh, well, that's a mistake. So
I know.
then I'll have to go and fix it.
So just
So
that
okay.
you're trying
Whatever.
to figure all of this stuff out.
So that's fine. If he wants to, poke at me, that's whatever.
Okay. But like I said, he is now on Letterboxd if you want to follow him there. We're also now on Threads if you want to follow us there. Otherwise, remaining thoughts for the week, Dad.
I have been trying to get through Secret Agent. I have no idea what
Brazilian
the fuck's going
film
on.
named The Secret Agent, just to clarify here.
Yeah, I have no idea what the fuck's going on. I'm going to have to go back and try and watch it again. And then you told me that it won't help. And I even tried reading the plot summary on Wikipedia, and I got more confused with the plot summary.
Oh, just wait till the ending.
Oh, I can hardly wait. So I did make it through If I Only Had Legs. It only leads me to the same conclusion that many people who go into mental health treatment are mentally ill.
Imagine that.
You mean the practitioners?
Yes.
As opposed to the patients? Because I think it's quite obvious
Correct.
the people that are being treated for mental health illness obviously have mental health illness.
Yes, I think sometimes the people doing the treating are worse than the patients.
Doctor, heal thyself.
It was an interesting film. Rose Byrne did do a good job. The script was convoluted and did not really make her very empathetic. But she did a very good job of portraying a lunatic.
Well, I'll soon find that out on my own when I get to it.
And Conan O'Brien did a great job of being a complete asshole.
Nice. So you enjoyed that?
I'm still trying to decide. I didn't mark it that I liked it because I wrote the review as soon as I was done, and I just was going, I'll have to revisit it in a couple of days. But I will do that.
Fair enough. Anything else you'd like to talk about?
Nope. I'm good.
Okay. We'll just gloss over the Mel Brooks documentary and we'll move on.
Well,
anyway.
That's in and of itself. I didn't want to necessarily go into that yet because I know a lot of people are seeing it, but for people who are Mel Brooks fans, there's not a whole lot new or revolutionary about it because most of it's already there. I knew most of the stuff in it, but still, it was a great presentation, and to see the level of impact Mel's had on culture and not just the United States, but worldwide is amazing.
It's a very long road to travel for a nice emotional impact at the end of it. It's a 2-part documentary that's more than 3 hours long collectively. And for a lot of it, other than like some of his life and some of the basic events that you'd get in most bio documentary types anyway, like there's not a whole lot of his life and career that I think they explored with any great point of view to aid in like his legacy or do anything special. They at least did get to interview him. But again, until the ending where I thought that it packed some emotionality for his impact, it was missing a lot of that quality for me. And it ended on a great note that I think covers over some of the sins for the rest of it. But to spend 3 hours plus and have to wait really for the ending to feel somewhat satisfied with where it was going, I think it left a little bit on the table. Because I think he is, in many ways, they did celebrate and try and aid or discuss how much of a celebrated and should be celebrated comedian he is, and how important he is into the history of filmmaking, particularly in comedic filmmaking. But it could have done a lot more in my eyes, and it felt kind of, in some stretches, milquetoast. But anyway, I'm just going to quickly say that of all the TV shows that have come back recently, yes, I did watch the first 4 episodes of Bridgerton, the part 1 that was released day and date. I got through all 4 of them on Thursday because I'm a crazy person. The Pit has been fantastic through 4 episodes so far. Shrinking was a nice warm blanket on Tuesday, even if it was like a super long episode. So I'm enjoying all the great TV that's out right now. In addition to that, I still have all of these Oscar movies to try and get through and churn through. So my watch list is very long. I am going to be very busy over the next month and a half, as everyone in our community will be as well. But it is an enjoyable time, to say the least. So that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you for listening. I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Next week, for our 299th episode, we welcome back 5-time club member Sarah Duncan to discuss the silent comedy classic The General from 1926, celebrating its 100th anniversary. Written and directed by Buster Keaton and Clyde Bruckman, with Al Boasberg and Charles Smith. Cinematography by Devereaux Jennings and Burt Haynes. Music by William Perry. Editing by Buster Keaton and Sherman Kell. Starring Buster Keaton and Marion Mack. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have, so that more can join in on our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or at GreatestAllTimeMoviePodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, or TikTok at the handle @GMOPodcast. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ronnie Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.